Now that you understand how to get past your fear and you understand about true natural birth and how it really works, and you understand about avoiding the natural birth traps and the induction traps, it's time to start writing an effective birth plan. Because one of my big secrets inside of the empowered birth system, that's not really so much of a secret because I put it out everywhere, is that you need to create your birth plan first before you hire your care provider, before you enroll your partner in your birth plan, before you plan your birth location. You need to make sure you have a solid birth plan. And the way that I do it is I say that templates and all of those checklists do not work. They are helpful, but if you are planning a true natural birth, they are going to lead you into the same natural birth traps. So, before I get started, I just want to remind you that part of the work you're doing with your workbook is allowing you to start to see where in your birth plan you need to start planning. And I'm going to give you a framework for that during this session. And I'm also going to invite you to go deeper. So I do have a birth plan mini course. It came with my book, Your Empowered Birth. So if you don't have that book and you haven't had access to that birth plan, you haven't gotten a chapter from me, or you haven't signed up on my email list before, then you might not know that this birth plan mini course exists. But as part of the Empowered Birth workshop, you automatically get access to this course. So you just go to empoweringmomsbirth.com/birth plan. Okay. And this is going to allow you to do a deeper dive after understanding the overview of what I'm going to be teaching in this session for you. Okay, so let's get started. So this is session 4, writing an effective birth plan. And I'm going to ask you the question, why do so many birth plans go out the window? So, in this class, we're going to explore the 3 big mistakes that derail birth plans before you even go into labor. I'm going to also tell you about the secret language to use when creating your plan because so many moms get this wrong. And I'm going to give you a simple framework to create your intentional birth plan without having to do a ton of research or learn your options. Because oftentimes this is where people get stuck and they're like, oh, I don't know my options. So I can't exactly plan ahead in my birth experience. How am I going to know if people don't tell me what to put in my plan? There's a big problem with letting other people tell you what to put in your plan is that you're going to fall into those natural birth traps because, as I said, it's all through society. It's all through our birth culture. It's in the medical system. It's ingrained, and there's a lot of fear. So people are planning their births from a place of fear instead of a place of power. So the reason that natural birth is so hard to get is because you're falling into the birth plan traps. So why do so many birth plans fail? You were taught what to think, not how to think. So I look at this as you're going to a restaurant, you have a certain idea of the kind of food that you want there. But on the way, somebody else is like, oh, like that's really hard to get here. Let's go to this one instead. It's basically the same thing. They kind of serve what you want. So it's okay, but it's not the expertise of that restaurant. So maybe if you want pasta and you're going to a burger joint, they do have a pasta dish, but you can tell they don't really make pasta there. They make burgers. Their burgers are excellent. There's nothing wrong with burgers. But if you are looking for pasta, you want to go to an actual Italian pasta joint. You don't want to go to the burger joint that just happens to have pasta on the menu. So this is one of the problems is that you're taught what to think about putting on your birth plan, but not how to think about it, not how to recognize that actually where you're going isn't quite what you want. And then this is when you lead into the problems with the natural birth traps. So what this basically looks like in practice is you're putting contingencies into your plan, like unless medically necessary. You're not writing your plan until much later, or you're waiting for your care provider to even bring up your birth plan. You're asking other people what to put in your birth plan. You're unwittingly following the medical model for your birth plan. and you're using checklists and templates or picking from menu options instead of creating your own. So the thing is that there's the 3 big birth plan mistakes that you're really making. I already talked about one of them. You're waiting until the end of your pregnancy. If you're waiting until the very end of your pregnancy to create your birth plan, first of all, that means you haven't done the appropriate research into your options. You haven't had the right education, because your birth plan is your roadmap to allow you to get that right education. You haven't been thinking about your birth plan. And at the same time, you don't know that your care provider is actually going to support that kind of birth. You haven't discussed it with your partner. And by bringing it in at the end of pregnancy, you've basically already wasted a lot of time. So that when you realize, oh, this is what I want in my plan, and your care provider says, oh, we don't actually do that here. We want you to do this instead. And because you're high risk, you have to do this. And then you're trying to bring it into the mom groups, like, is this plan okay? And they say, like, you really want to do this instead, just in case of something happening. And where's this in the plan? And you're thinking to yourself, oh no, I actually don't have this all figured out. So don't wait till the end of your pregnancy. This is why I say you want to create your birth plan either at the start of your pregnancy or before you even get pregnant, because it's your roadmap. And if you are under 25 weeks, you're still in the perfect time frame. If you're not, and you're at the end and you're just creating your birth plan now, then I do suggest that you take advantage of the call that came with this course. So just reach out to me, hello@empoweringmomsbirth.com. Ask your questions, send in your birth plan that you've got written out so far. If I can spot some traps for you and put you back on course, I will absolutely do that. You may not even need any additional support from me aside from me saying, hey, by the way, do you actually want this thing? No, I don't. Oh, you don't have to have it. And then you're like, oh, okay, cool. And you just strike it out. And you recognize that you can actually do something different with your plan than what you thought. And then maybe you do need some extra support. And I'm committed to being able to help you. Either myself or a member of my team is here to help you to make sure that you get your birth plan on track so that you don't fall into those natural birth traps that I mentioned. You don't fall into an induction trap. You don't fall into a cesarean trap. Instead, you manage to get that true natural birth experience, or at least close to it, close to your dream. And you have chosen any intervention that you actually need to have. But other than that, you're not getting into that medical model of birth. The other big mistake that's being made is relying on other people to tell you what your options are. Don't do that, because remember, everybody lives in the same culture of fear. Okay. Fish can't see the water that they swim in. You remember from session number 1 when I talked about fear and the 4 different types of fear sources, which are your family of origin, your education, social media, and the media. So everybody else is in the same immersive culture of fear. We have histories and generations of birth trauma. We have the problem with the medical system having basically taught us that our bodies are broken and defective. And we have these misconceptions about what natural birth actually looks like. So then you go and ask other people what your options are, or say, hey, what do you think of this plan? And they say, oh, you should probably have that IV. Why are you saying no to those vaginal exams? Why are you saying no to this? And then they start to make you doubt yourself, or they suggest things to put in your plan that actually don't align with what you really want. And this leads you thinking you have less options than you really do, and you don't explore other possibilities, and you're not going for your dream birth, but instead you're going through the natural birth package, which, as I said, is a trap. And the other mistake that a lot of people are making is putting everything in one plan. Now, I already talked about this before, and you might see videos on my YouTube, and I've talked about this inside my book, Your Empowered Birth, about having a backup plan. And so what you really want to understand is when you were going through session 3 about induction and understanding where those traps are and making those decisions with NABRI, this is where you start to take your fears and you put it through NABRI and you explore the options of, well, what if this thing happens? Then how am I going to deal with it? But you put that on your backup plan. You don't say unless medically necessary, because if it's medically necessary, you need to decide whether it's medically necessary, not them. Because the medical system is basically trained to think everything they do is medically necessary. They are basing it on profit, convenience, liability issues, and they are also operating on the idea that birth just goes to you know what. Because of the catastrophes that they see, the trauma that they've seen, they can't actually see that their own practices are causing the trauma. They're just saying, oh, well, when somebody doesn't do this, then we don't have the ability to do this intervention. And then this happens. They don't recognize that if your plan does need to change, you do have that in your backup plan. But in your main plan, no, you don't put that in there. So this is a good time to take a break, go get a glass of water, go pee, go have some lunch. Maybe you might even want to take a break from the trainings for today and go through your workbook. If you want to go deeper with the actual mistakes, I did create a report. Now, this is available for free on my website, empoweringmomsbirth.com/freebies, but I also included it here in case you maybe haven't gone to that website yet, you haven't downloaded it. So I have included that mistakes report. And what you're going to basically see is the psychology of why each of those mistakes that I listed are such a problem and what to do instead. And once you've gone through that, and you've got that guide and you've written through your workbook a little bit and you've taken some time, you can come back and we'll get started into the next session.